All right, update. As we reported at the top of the show, federal judge in California today issued a blistering ruling from the bench in which he ordered the Trump administration to rehire thousands of people they had fired from the federal government at USDA, Defense Department, Energy Department, Department of the Interior, the Treasury, and the VA.
Get an update on it.
Caroline, district court rulings about all the fired probationary workers. You used the same language here just now that was in the statement about fighting back against that ruling. Do you mean appealing or something else? And does the administration plan to comply with those orders in the meantime?
Fighting back by appealing, fighting back by using the full weight of the White House counsel's office.
Para ser el tipo que dijo que nos cansaríamos de ganar bajo su presidencia, Donald Trump ha estado acumulando derrotas últimamente. Cada una de ellas peor que la anterior. La más reciente puede ser, yo creo que una de las mejores, porque no solo es un golpe tremendo para Trump, sino que es una victoria para miles de trabajadores federales. Como era de esperarse, pues Donald Trump no lo tomó nada bien, lo cual significa que su secretaria de prensa, Karoline Leavitt, está reaccionando incluso peor. Sean bienvenidos a Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Amigos, hoy veremos cómo es que, una vez más, la secretaria de prensa de Trump pierde la cabeza cuando lo confrontan con una demanda. Los invito a que se queden hasta el final de este video porque mostraremos detalles muy interesantes. Ahora bien, señores, antes de ver el colapso de Karoline Leavitt, necesitamos un contexto sobre esta gran victoria legal y al mismo tiempo la gran derrota de Trump. Para esto, escuchemos a Rachel Maddow explicarlo.
All right, update. As we reported at the top of the show, federal judge in California today issued a blistering ruling from the bench in which he ordered the Trump administration to rehire thousands of people they had fired from the federal government at USDA, Defense Department, Energy Department, Department of the Interior, the Treasury, and the VA. Well, I got two updates for you. Because tonight, just as we were coming on the air, the plaintiffs in that case, the California federal case, the plaintiffs are the union representing government workers. Plaintiffs went back to that same judge in California and essentially said, thank you for this ruling today, Your Honor. Can you please make it so it applies to even more agencies? They have now formally asked the judge to expand that order today to also order the reinstatement of fired employees at the Commerce Department, Education Department, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, Housing and Urban Development, the Justice Department, Department of Transportation, the EPA, NASA, the National Science Foundation, and the Small Business Administration. Update 1. Here's update 2. Just minutes after those plaintiffs asked the California federal judge to expand his ruling and order even more agencies to rehire even more people, a second federal judge across the country in Maryland issued a ruling in an entirely separate case ordering the federal government also to rehire thousands of fired federal employees. This federal judge in Maryland tonight has just ordered that thousands of fired probationary employees must now be reinstated at, ready for the list? Department of Agriculture, Department of Commerce, Department of Defense, Department of Education, Department of Energy, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, Housing and Urban Development, Department of the Interior, Department of Labor, Department of Transportation, the Treasury Department, VA, USAID, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the EPA, the FDIC, the General Services Administration, the Office of Personnel Management, the Small Business Administration, and the National Archives and Records Administration. All of them. Reinstate all of your fired probationary employees. And if it seems like there's overlap between the list in those two cases, you are correct. As of tonight, just in today's news, we've got overlapping federal rulings ordering the immediate reinstatement of thousands of employees at multiple federal agencies. I'll tell you, the Maryland judge writes in this new order that's just out tonight, quote, the law is clear that when dismissing an employee due to unsatisfactory performance, the employer must honestly be dissatisfied with the probationer's conduct or performance after giving him a fair trial on the job. But again, two federal judges tonight with equally sweeping rulings, both in the same direction, both telling Trump, when you fired those people, you had no right. Give them back their jobs.
Esto es exactamente de lo que casi siempre intento hablar. Es la importancia de darnos cuenta de que aún tenemos poder de pelea. Si en este momento nos rendimos antes de tiempo, si simplemente asumimos que Donald Trump simplemente va a ganar todo sin resistencia, como al menos algunos demócratas hacen en los medios y en el Congreso, entonces estamos perdiendo la oportunidad de conseguir victorias como esta. Claro, toma tiempo, pero mientras tanto hay que presionar, ¿no? Hay que seguir exponiéndolos, hay que seguir motivando a la gente, porque podemos luchar y claramente podemos tener varias victorias. Y eso los está volviendo locos. Prueba de ello es la rabieta de Caroline Leavitt luego de esta derrota para Trump. Veamos el momento en el cual prácticamente se descontrola.
Get an update on it.
Caroline, district court rulings about all the fired probationary workers. You used the same language here just now that was in the statement about fighting back against that ruling. Do you mean appealing or something else? And does the administration plan to comply with those orders in the meantime?
Fighting back by appealing, fighting back by using the full weight of the White House counsel's office and our lawyers at the federal government who believe that this injunction is entirely unconstitutional. And it is, for anybody who has a basic understanding of the law. You cannot have a low-level district court judge filing an injunction to usurp the executive authority of the President of the United States. That is completely absurd. And as the executive of the executive branch, the President has the ability to fire or hire. And you have these lower level judges who are trying to block this President's agenda. It's very clear. And as I just cited, I was appalled by the statistic when I saw it this morning. In 1 month, in February, there have been 15 injunctions of this administration in our agenda. In 3 years under the Biden administration, there were 14 injunctions. So it's very clear that there are judicial activists throughout our judicial branch who are trying to block this president's executive authority. We are going to fight back. And as anyone who saw President Trump and his legal team fighting back, they know how to do it. He was indicted nearly 200 times, and he's in the Oval Office now because all of the indictments, all of these injunctions have always been unconstitutional and unfair. They are led by partisan activists who are trying to usurp the will of this president, and we're not going to stand for it.
Vamos a dejar algo muy claro. Y sé que ustedes, la mayoría al menos, ya no confía nada, ¿no?, en lo que dice Caroline Leavitt. No necesitan que yo les diga que a veces miente o que a veces se equivoca, ¿no? Pero lo diré de todas formas. No es inconstitucional que existan controles sobre el poder presidencial. Al parecer, Caroline Leavitt no lo sabe, pero bueno, esto es algo básico, ¿no? Nivel escolar. Lo que sí es inconstitucional es desafiar órdenes judiciales. Lo que sí es inconstitucional es que Trump intente apropiarse del poder del Congreso para controlar el presupuesto. Lo que sí es inconstitucional es que Trump quiera convertirse en un monarca todopoderoso. Oponerse a Trump no te convierte en criminal, tampoco en traidor, tampoco antiamericano. De hecho, no hay nada más patriótico en este momento que resistirse a él. Y bueno, volviendo a Caroline Leavitt, pues bueno, su trabajo es mentir. Al menos en eso debería de ser buena, ¿no? Pero ni siquiera logra hacer que sus mentiras suenan convincentes. La buena noticia es que finalmente estamos viendo resultados positivos. Nuevamente, Rachel Maddow tiene más sobre esto, así que vamos a verlo.
The judge then decided in this hearing today that he wasn't going to wait to give a written ruling. He decided, you know what, I've heard enough. He decided he was going to rule from the bench today. T-O-D-A-Y, today. So he started with this. And the judge says this. Now, what I'm about to say is not the legal basis for what I'm going to order today, but I just want to say it. He says, quote, "It is a sad day when our government would fire some good employee and say it was based on performance when they know good and well that's a lie. Excellent in all, fully," what was the phrase? I don't want to misstate it. Quote, "fully successful in every category, yet they terminate her based on her performance. That should not have been done in our country. It was a sham in order to avoid statutory requirements. It also happens to be that whenever you fire somebody based on performance, then they can't get unemployment insurance. So that makes it even worse, doesn't it? And then it makes it even worse because the next employer is going to say, well, have you ever been terminated based on performance? They're going to have to say yes to thousands of people. It is illustrative of the manipulation that was going on by OPM to try to orchestrate this government-wide termination of probationary employees. Quote, the court finds that OPM did direct all the agencies to terminate probationary employees. The court rejects the government's attempt to use these press releases and to read between the lines to say that the agency heads made their own decision with no direction from OPM. The relief that's going to be granted is as follows. First, the temporary restraining order will be extended. The VA shall immediately offer reinstatement to any and all probationary employees terminated on or about February 13th or 14th. This order finds that all such terminations were directed by defendant OPM and were unlawful because OPM had no authority to do so. Further, the VA shall cease any and all use of the template termination notice provided by OPM and shall immediately advise all probationary employees terminated February 13th and 14th that the notice and termination have been found to be unlawful by the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. The VA shall cease any termination of probationary employees at the direction of OPM. To repeat, this order holds that OPM has no authority whatsoever to direct, order, or require in any way that any agency fire any employee. Now, given the arguments and the facts in this case, namely that defendants have attempted to recast these directives as mere guidance, my order today, quote, further prohibits defendants from giving guidance as to whether any employee should be terminated. Any termination of agencies' employees must be made by the agencies themselves, if made at all, and they must be made in conformity with the Civil Service Reform Act and the Reduction in Force Act and any other constitutional or statutory legal requirement. He says, quote, in 7 calendar days, relief defendant, VA, the VA shall submit a list of all probationary employees terminated on or about February 13th and 14th with an explanation as to each of what has been done to comply with this order. Then the judge says this. Now, this order so far has only mentioned the VA, the Veterans Administration. But the same relief is extended, and I'm not going to repeat it, but I'm extending the same relief to the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, the Department of the Interior, the Department of Treasury. And so it's the VA plus all those other agencies. He says, and this is without prejudice to extending the relief later in further to other agencies. The judge then closes with this. I will try to get out a short memorandum opinion that elaborates on this order, but this is the order, and it counts effective immediately. Please don't say, oh, I'm waiting for the written order. This is the order from the bench. And then the judge then closes with this admonition to the Trump administration lawyer. Quote, if you want to appeal to the Court of Appeals, God bless you. I want you to, because I'm tired of seeing you stonewall on trying to get at the truth. And that is how thousands of people who work in our government, who Donald Trump and his top campaign donor tried to fire, that is how thousands of Americans got their jobs back today.
Amigos, hay batallas que se pueden ganar. Quizás no sintamos que ganamos cada enfrentamiento y seamos honestos, la mayoría de las veces no lo parece. Pero la pregunta aquí es, ¿se seguirá peleando? Es muy importante no desconectarse, porque cuando lo hacemos, ellos hacen lo que quieren. Y sí, Trump y sus aliados van a seguir con corrupción y de una manera descarada. Por eso, amigos, hay que seguir luchando. Eso en sí ya es una victoria. Y bueno, como siempre vamos a estar viendo estas victorias aquí en nuestro canal. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerden que si me quieren apoyar, regálame un like, comparte el video con tus amigos y suscríbete a nuestro canal Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.